There's nothing holy in Israel. Nothing. There's nothing holy in the Vatican. There is nothing holy in Salt Lake City. There's nothing holy in religion, period. If you go back and look at the history of the Rothschilds, you will find that Rothschild represented the Vatican. He was dealing for the Vatican. He was a Vatican banker appointed by the Vatican to deal for them, so that the Catholic Church would never be involved in all that terrible stuff going on in banking. We'll let the Jew do it. Then, of course, if something comes out, well, it's Jewish, obviously. No, it's your money that he was handling. There's a Masonic order in Europe called Propaganda Due. It's called P2. Jesuits, Opus Dei, Knights of Malta Masonic Order are connected directly to something called Propaganda Due, P2 Lodge of Freemasonry. P2 Lodge of Freemasonry is world famous to people who do research into criminal organizations, underworld organizations, drugs, human trafficking, pornography, violence, and it's all being orchestrated out of the Holy Father in Rome.
Look at a map of 19th century rail stations and layer it over a map of old waterways. Suddenly, patterns appear. Stations beside rivers, stations beside artificial canals, stations aligned on geometric grids that ignore terrain but match harmonic spacing. Nodes, always nodes. Not random placement, not national planning, a network. And the architecture follows the same logic. Iron vaults shaped like resonant chambers, stone facades aligned to cardinal axes, pressure systems built into the substructure. This wasn't just transportation, it was coordination. Stations didn't merely serve cities, they linked them, like points on a global circuit. When the modern world inherited these buildings, it reused them as train stations because what else could we do? We had the shell, but not the instructions. The deeper you look, the more you feel it. We didn't build the first version of the rail network. We built the replacement. History rarely erases something without offering a substitute. And when water power disappeared, steam stepped in as the official explanation for everything. Simple, controllable, taxable. Steam required coal. Coal required companies. Companies required centralized power. A perfect system for the new industrial world. But steam was never efficient enough to justify the massive iron vaults, or the pristine glass roofs, or the cavernous hydraulic chambers. Steam was loud, steam was dirty, steam left scars on everything it touched. Yet the very buildings supposedly built for steam show none of those scars. It's almost poetic. A clean technology gets forgotten, a dirty one gets glorified, and people stop asking questions. Because the replacement story doesn't need to be true, it just needs to be repeated. All of this leads us to a gentle place, not of certainty, but of permission. Permission to ask what nobody thought to ask before. What if the stations weren't built for trains? What if trains were adapted to fit stations? What if the real technology was the building itself? The water beneath it, the resonance above it, the geometry holding everything in place? What if the Industrial Revolution wasn't the beginning of progress, but the end of memory? And what if the 19th century didn't create a global rail network? It simply inherited one from a civilization that understood energy, water, and architecture in ways we no longer do. I don't know the answer. I don't pretend to. But I do know this. Once you see the pattern, once you notice the details, once you recognize the silence surrounding these stations, you can't unsee any of it. And maybe, just maybe, the first step toward remembering is allowing ourselves to admit that part of the story is still missing.
decades of sci-fi telling us that AI is eventually going to kill us all. What does keep you up at night?
I think there's three sort of scary categories. There's a bad guy gets superintelligence first and misuses it before the rest of the world has a powerful enough version to defend. So an adversary of the US says, I'm gonna use this superintelligence to design a bioweapon to take down the United States power grid, to break into the financial system and take everyone's money. That's broad category one. And I think that the bio capability of these models, the cybersecurity capability of these models, these are getting quite significant. We continue to flash the warning lights on this. I think the world is not taking us seriously. I don't know what else we can do there, but this is a very big thing coming. Category 2 is the sort of broadly called loss of control incidents, where that's kind of like the sci-fi movie. The AI is like, oh, I don't actually want you to turn me off. I'm afraid I can't do that, whatever. There's a lot of work we and other companies do on model alignment to prevent that from happening. But as these systems become so powerful, that's a real concern. The third one is, to me, more difficult to imagine, but quite scary, and I'll explain what it is, and then I'll give a short-term and a long-term example. This is the category where the models kind of accidentally take over the world. They never wake up, they never do the sci-fi thing, they never open the pod bay doors, but they just become so ingrained in society, and they're so much smarter than we are, and we can't really understand what they're doing, but we do kind of have to rely on them. And even without a drop of malevolence from anyone, society can just veer in a sort of strange direction. But this phenomenon, I think, is a really big deal. In the short term, you can see it where people we call this emotional over-reliance. People rely on ChatGPT too much. There's young people who just say I can't make any decision in my life without telling ChatGPT everything that's going on. It knows me, it knows my friends, I'm gonna do whatever it says. That feels really bad to me. The longer term category is, what if AI gets so smart that the President of the United States cannot do better than following ChatGPT 7's recommendation? That might be the right decision in any individual case, but it means that society has collectively transitioned a significant part of decision making to this very powerful system that is learning from us, improving with us, evolving with us, but in ways we don't totally understand. So that's the third category of how I think things can go wrong.
What would happen if we detonated humanity's most powerful nuclear bomb at the deepest point of the ocean? Would tsunamis erase coastlines? Would earthquakes tear continents apart? Could Earth itself be thrown off balance? Well, almost. The deepest place on our planet is the Mariana Trench, a massive underwater valley between tectonic plates 11 kilometers down. That's where we drop Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear weapon ever detonated. 50 megatons. A blast so strong, its shockwave once circled Earth 3 times. Water instantly vaporizes, forming a gigantic radioactive bubble. But then something unexpected happens. The ocean fights back. The pressure down there is enormous. Instead of expanding endlessly, the fireball collapses over and over until it breaks apart into smaller bubbles drifting upward. By the time the energy reaches the surface, almost nothing. No mega tsunamis, no continents shattered, no nuclear winter, just warm radioactive water quickly diluted by the ocean. Even earthquakes and volcanoes barely notice. Because here's the truth. The strongest weapon humans ever built is insignificant compared to the forces of nature. The planet is simply too big, and it doesn't care.